discussing this issue of masculinity. Great, yeah. So I am happy that Cameroon with other countries was able to join the global movement in working on this very inspiring project. As I don't need to introduce myself again, what we have to do now is to start. It's very important that we start this discussion with we are going to start with a very short film, which give an idea of how the situation in Cameroon is all about regarding the militarized masculinity. So let's take a few minutes to watch this video, which is going to be presented by Rim. Please go ahead.
Great. Thanks again. And
are you okay? Yeah.
Yes, thanks again. And the video, I'm going to be screening just a short video. It's actually part of our documentary film, which is called Power on Patrol. And it spotlights how female activists are working with men in conflict societies around the world to challenge notions of militarized masculinities. It was filmed in Afghanistan, DRC, Cameroon, and Colombia. It will actually be screened at Women Deliver this month. And we will now watch the Cameroon section.
Technology.
Sorry, 1 minute. I'm just.
It's okay. No worries. Just take your time, man.
Yes, and it's going to start now. You can just write in the chat if there is a problem when it comes, if you can't hear it well. Okay.
Inequality is at the root of the conflict in Cameroon. People feel excluded, they feel discriminated, and all those frustrations over the years have piled up.
Direction le Cameroun, où depuis 1000 jours maintenant, une partie du pays, la partie anglophone de ce pays bilingue en rouge sur cette carte, connaît une insurrection armée lancée par des groupes sécessionnistes, des groupes qui ambitionnent de créer un nouveau pays, l'Ambazonie. Ces derniers mois, les combats frontaux passés.
We have the crisis in the northwest and southwest in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon. Far north of the country, we have the Boko Haram insurgency, we have the post-electoral crisis, and then we have the refugee crisis in Cameroon. The crisis have now become an open, violent conflict. The militarized masculinities have a negative impact on the community and also on the work for feminist peace.
Plus tard, nous voici dans l'autre province anglophone, celle du Nord-Ouest, dernier grand fief de l'armée séparatiste.
You have all of them.
As we have some of the news about the situation on the
Why
conflict.
is government avoiding open dialogue with real actors?
And the chief may be one of those actors to be included in a dialogue if you want to look for solutions for the crisis. You have witnessed some of these atrocities of this. I think he has to be one of those actors.
If we have a traditional leader like the chief who understands the work of feminist peace, I think it's a very good ally that we can build on. We have tried in other communities to reach out to the chief. No, it's not possible because of the tradition, but he is open to welcome anyone to make change happen.
Afternoon. You're all welcome to the palace.
Thank you.
We've been hearing your job, the work you are doing, you're pressing for the peace, so we're very happy. My late father was a chief. When we were young, we thought that he was a very hard and a wicked person. The way our father brought us up is the same thing I saw in the army. All the malnutrition, everything they were doing to us in the military camp was a normal thing I saw when I was still a child in our palace. When I entered the army, they were very brutal, those soldiers. They enter the bar, they will behave otherwise, they beat people, drink, all the money get finished. So when they recruited the young Cameroonians, they thought that that was the behavior of a soldier. They copied those negative behavior. That's what gave me a negative thought about the soldiers, that I wanted to regret why I entered there, but then I was already inside and I continue going with that.
Even the chief himself, he is a former gendarme. But the chief feels that if you want to use violence or the military response, it should be the last recourse. The chief is promoting dialogue as a solution to conflict.
Legitimate violence doesn't exist. The soldier and the gendarme, they have all the powers. If you do something wrong, the only thing is just to arrest you, carry you to their office for the investigation. There's no need beating on somebody. When you beat on somebody, you become wild. You change him, change his mentality. He becomes a rebel.
We cannot achieve our results if we don't have people like you. In that regard, we are really looking forward to your support, because if we do have your support, we are going to be able to have the support of other chiefs, which is very critical because the violence is happening in the communities. The traditional leaders are the custodians of the traditions. They are the representative of communities in charge of ensuring social cohesion and the good functioning of the community. When they speak, they are heard.
Once you are a chief, everybody look at you to show the example to his community. What I do is trying to see if there are possibilities to empower everybody, whether you are a girl or a boy. I always think of them. I want them to succeed in their life.
Militarization has a negative impact as far as the progress of these children is concerned. The parents of these children are displayed. Some of the parents are dead, but they're not going to school. Some of them have joined the separatists in the bush.
I've noticed psychological impact on my pupils. Those who have left the war zone to Melon, they don't really feel at ease. It affects the learning. Those internally displaced pupils, they really pick up from here because they found their base.
In this community, it's very different. The chief accommodates IDPs without knowing where they are coming from. Also, we have noted that in his chieftaincy, they have regular meetings to talk about the issues which are challenging the community.
I don't know if I'm done. I present you my parlor where I receive superior chiefs.
So you said this is your place and that's for
other chiefs.
Okay.
All the chairs in this house are thrown.
Okay.
They're for other chiefs.
Do women have a seat in here?
Mafo, like you can receive them here for special cases.
Yes.
But it's not regular.
And if you receive Mafo like me, where do I sit?
If we are the two of us,
yes,
you can sit nearer me or throw here that way. If there are two of us here, but if there are other phones, you can still sit after all the phones have seated.
Okay. Yeah, everything is not perfect with the chief here. The way he speaks, I want to understand whether women's opinion are taken into account. But I'm very curious, Majesty. I'm curious to know, in the palace, so many people will come to you for their issues, to have solutions. I'm sure there's conflict resolution mechanism in the palace. Just want to know whether in some of these mechanisms, women have a role to play.
A very important role, because sometimes men don't understand very well the problems of women. When they say sometimes problem of women, I would like a woman to cheer.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so happy.
To cheer the meeting.
Yeah, I'm very happy you are mentioning it because when I went through it, and if those mechanisms do not have that in mind, that there are some things that women will never speak in front of another man, will be very difficult. You would think that the problem is managed in the community, meanwhile it is not. Because I was very surprised to see that women are also part of these processes, which is very important because for other chiefs in other communities, the woman has no role to play. Therefore, it's very important to bring men on board.
I have a lot of friends. I always tell them the importance of the women, what women can do. Some understand, some cannot understand. It's natural, but then I'm always talking to them. In my own little area, I will continue preaching to people, telling the people what Madame Sylvie has been telling. And maybe once in a time, I can gather people, invite her here to come and preach to them.
Now that is open to welcome us and ready to support us to link out to other chiefs. It means that we are going to have impact in different communities.
I'm a man of peace, and I like freedom, I like liberty. And that's what I'm marking that she's preaching for that. And I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Rim. Yeah, this was just a part of the film to set the scene so that you have an idea of the dynamics in Cameroon regarding the militarized masculinity and the work which is being done. In this specific case, this was a chief that is very instrumental in supporting our work towards feminist peace, bringing men and boys on board. So thank you so much. I saw many comments in the chat asking for whether the film is available. Yes, I think it's available on the WILPF website. So we are going to go into our different topic of discussion. I am going to start by, it's true that in the film, there was an idea already of the dynamics of conflict within Cameroon, but I would like to take just a few minutes to talk about the Cameroonian context and especially the specific conflict hitting Cameroon. I need support, Rim, in terms of time management. So, yeah, time management, please. Yeah, I want to say that Cameroon is a country situated in Central Africa, and Cameroon has a long history, full country. So I think that's why peace initiative at one point were taken for granted because of this long history of peaceful country. But unfortunately, nowadays, as the time we are speaking now, two big conflicts are hitting Cameroon, and these are very, very violent, including the secession region of Cameroon, the two-speaking regions, and also the Boko Haram conflict, sorry. And I want to say that apart from these two big conflicts, we also have some conflict dynamics, including ethnic conflict with increase of hate speech, tribalism. We also have some new dynamics within communities with the growth of the IDPs, the refugees. We now have another dynamic within communities. This are conflict between it and the IDPs, or the host communities and the refugees. We also have border tensions, like, for example, with CAR in the east, and then with Equatorial Guinea in the south. We have political tension, socio-political tension, and these were exacerbated after the election, the presidential election of 2018. So these are the conflict dynamic, but the most violent conflict is the bigger conflict between the government and the separatists from the English-speaking minority. It started in 2017, and we are very, very sad because the conflict has claimed the life of more than 6,000 people today. And we have like more than 700,000 people who have been displaced. So, and many people, including girls and boys, who have not been going to school for years as a result of this conflict. The consequences are enormous. Yeah, include especially on the women and the children. So we can see that there is forced displacement, of course, of the communities in general, but most importantly of women. Family balance is disrupted. Loss of financial autonomy. The minute you leave your community, you become IDP somewhere, so you lose your financial autonomy. There is increased gender-based violence. Since the crisis, the rate of gender-based violence in Cameroon has greatly increased, and there is a change of social role. Yeah, women are now taking up many roles that they didn't take before, and vice versa. And young girls and single mothers are exposed to prostitution. Children are exposed to forced labor, and so on and so forth, just to name a few. This is just to tell you that the picture is not very nice, even though for so long the country was considered a peaceful country. I want to end this very brief overview of the situation of Cameroon by saying that when in our work, in our different work and many others, we have come to see that there are two key reasons if we want to talk about root conflict of the situation today. The first is the historical political decision to unite the two federal systems. I can point out as colonization, because why did we first have to be? Because of the and British colonizing the country. So the decision, the political decision to put the two federal states together is one of the root causes of the conflict we have today. The second root cause I want to mention is the fight over natural resources. I want to say that Cameroon, like many other countries in Africa, is suffering what we can call resource curse, because the resource is normally supposed to benefit the country or the people. But unfortunately, like in many countries, it's becoming an object of divide within the country. So these are some of the root causes of conflict, and unfortunately, the consequences are very bad. So today, we have a very high-level panelists to discuss this question with us. And in our work within the section in Cameroon, we started working since the creation in Cameroon, we started working on it, and then we came to realize that the Women, Peace and Security agenda is about, as I indicated, trying to address the root causes of conflict and making sure that the women are at the table. At the same time, there is participation as a key pillar of this resolution, meaning that as we are looking for solutions or for peaceful solutions to conflict, we need to have in mind the principle of leave no one behind. So we were able to look at the root causes of conflict, and really we're very happy to join this global research. So today we have a high-level panelists who are going to share their experiences regarding the work that was done in Cameroon. I have the pleasure and the honor to talk to Professor Lotsmart. Sorry if I'm not calling the name the way I should, sorry. Yes, Professor is, sorry, 1 minute, please. Professor Lotsmart is professor at the University of Cincinnati, USA. So he has conducted great research on Cameroon, especially on the conflict area. So we have the honor to have him today. I would like to ask Professor this question. Professor, our project has tried in Cameroon to understand the causes and manifestation of militarized masculinities in each of the countries we work in. In Cameroon, we also wanted to know from our context, because the DRC context is different, the Colombian context, but we wanted to understand the causes and manifestation in Cameroon. I want to know from you, drawing on your research, could you share your analysis of the historical and structural drivers of conflict in Cameroon? Professor, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Delphine, and thank you for inviting me to this very important discussion. As you know, there is no way we can have peace without understanding the causes of a problem. And so understanding the causes is very, very fundamental in designing peaceful outcome or peaceful solutions. So since we're dealing with the Anglophone conflict, I will try to limit my discussion on the Anglophone conflict. The first thing that I want us to know is that the concept of Anglophone is very fluid in Cameroon. It is confusing, it's political, it is ill-defined. So for the purpose of this discussion, let me pretend to define Anglophone as not a linguistic group, as people often consider. It is not linguistic. It is more a geographical community, people that lived in what is often referred to as British Cameroon before 1961. So people who have originated either by parental origin, whose parents were born in what was often known as British Southern Cameroon before 1961. So that is the geographical location that we call Anglophone Cameroon. And as you began, you tried to raise some of the causes. The causes to me are based on my research. We can identify them from 6 major sources. You raised the historical. So the first one is the legacy of colonialism. And simply put, colonialism created what is known today as Anglophones and Francophones. So without colonialism, we would not have had Anglophones and Francophones. In 1884, the British were, the Germans were the first to come to Cameroon. They colonized Cameroon. But after the First World War, the British were defeated from Cameroon. As the British were defeated from Cameroon, the Germans were defeated from Cameroon. The German territories were shared between the French and the British in what is often considered as a leak of mandated territory. So Britain took part of Cameroon and France took part of Cameroon. So that is the first cause, the fact that colonialism created Anglophones and Francophones. The second major driver of the conflict is what I call the era of decolonization. There was, in the 1960s, there was a decolonization of Africa. And what did decolonization do to Cameroon? Decolonization created a Francophone majority against an Anglophone minority. Without decolonization, we would not have had this Anglophone minority and Francophone majority. And so when Cameroon, Francophone Cameroon and Anglophone Cameroon that has been created by colonization decided to come together, they came together in a union that was of unequal status, with a majority 1/5 Francophone and about 1/4 Francophone. So that was the beginning of that divide, the beginning of differences, because where there is a minority and a majority, there's likely going to be some issues. The third thing that I consider as a major driver is the post-colonial blunder by the administrations that took over Cameroon. When the Cameroon Francophone and Anglophone came together, they came together in a federal system of government, 2 states of equal status. But by the 1970s, what later happened was that the federation was abolished and a unitary government was created. The unity government created did not provide legal protections for the Anglophone. So Anglophones still think that they are 2 people, but with different perspectives. So the absence of legal guide rail to protect Anglophone in a new system of governance that was created after reunification created opportunities for people to start agitating. Okay, so we move from federation to centralization and the loss of Anglophone identity. So that was one of the major issues that drove this conflict. The fourth one that I think is also what I would call administrative gaffes or administrative blunders, okay? In Cameroon, there's always this statement that is often said, we are equal, we are the same, but unequal. So this theory states that there is a lot of marginalization and unequal political representations of Anglophones and Francophones in the public space. So when you look at the administration, when you look at the ministries, you look at the political opportunities, Anglophones, some Anglophone things they are marginalized because they have not had the opportunity to occupy major positions, and they think that most of these positions are, given to Francophone. As a result of that, there is some internal boiling in the Anglophones community who do not feel comforted, who do not feel to have the same opportunities that the Francophones brothers have. Okay, the next one that I would think is a major driver of this conflict is what I would call Anglophone cultural identity. Anglophone said, well, they don't believe in harmonization. Okay, they believe in the legal, educational, and the legal and educational system. Okay, they say they like the legal and educational systems that they have as it is. In Cameroon, people tend to think first as in French and in English, and then they act as Cameroonian. So they think first based on the fact that they have been brought up in the English system or in the French system of education. So Francophones, when they began to become more and more involved in the educational and the legal system of the English-speaking areas, Anglophones saw that as another form of not marginalization, they saw that as a form of harmonization, and they tend to resist it. And that is why in 2017, Anglophones teachers and lawyers, resisted the fact that there were many Francophones judges that were posted to Anglophone areas, and there were many Francophone teachers that were posted to Anglophone areas, and they thought that they were coming to adulterate the Anglophone system of education and the Anglophone legal system. As a result of that, there was agitation that led to the crisis. But above all, poverty, we cannot undermine the role of poverty and underdevelopment. If you go to Cameroon, there is poverty everywhere, not only in the Anglophone regions, but both in the Anglophone and the Francophone regions. There is underdevelopment everywhere, both in the Francophone and Anglophone region. But when people have political differences, when people have political problems, they exploit poverty to raise their voices. And when these voices are not heard by the system or by the government, it turns violent. So in a nutshell, these are some of the key historical drivers. The fact that colonization created Francophone and Anglophone, and decolonization created a minority and a majority. And the fact that post-colonial administration created many gaps, they created this environment for conflict to emerge in Cameroon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. This is really wonderful. You have said it all. Identify 6 major drivers of conflict: legacy of colonialism, errors of decolonization, post-colonial blunder, administrative blunder, Anglophone cultural identity with resistance to harmonization, and then poverty, underdevelopment, unemployment, and all this exploited to raise the voices. And unfortunately, the voices which are not most of the time heard. So thank you so much, Professor, for this very good presentation. Now, I would like to talk to my dear sister, my dear friend, Delphine. Yes, Delphine, I would like to know, we have been working together for so many years, and I will give you the opportunity to present yourself. You are the senior interagency GenCap advisor. So, but I'll leave the floor to you to present yourself more. But I want to know, in your research, you pointed out that many men from the Northwest and Southwest regions in Cameroon have tried to escape armed conflict, not to participate in it. Could you say more about how men have responded to and been affected by armed violence and how this in turn has affected women? I want to really thank you so much because you have been raising attention on the fact that, of course, women are highly impacted, but in this specific case, men and boys are also impacted. Delphine.
Merci Sylvie, et je propose de m'exprimer en français si ceci convient. Lotsmart, d'accord, Lotsmart nous a planté le décor en termes historiques et politiques. Moi, je me suis beaucoup intéressée à la question de voir comment est-ce que les hommes et les adolescents garçons s'adaptent dans une situation telle que Lotsmart nous a décrit, avec beaucoup de violences armées. Et ce qu'on peut noter dans les régions du Nord-Ouest et du Sud-Ouest, c'est que cette population en général va utiliser 3 stratégies, soit de se battre, l'une des motivations étant de se mettre sous la protection des groupes armés, soit de se cacher, soit encore de se déplacer vers d'autres régions. Et les raisons qui conduisent à ces changements drastiques dans la vie de cette population masculine, c'est le fait qu'ils sont particulièrement confrontés à des violences qui les rendent vulnérables. Pour vous donner une idée, dans ces 2 régions, 8 à 9 personnes sur 10 qui sont confrontées à des arrestations arbitraires, torture, disparition, violences physiques sont des adolescents et des hommes. Et les violences basées sur le genre, commises par d'autres hommes, sont aussi une réalité à laquelle ils font face. Simplement pour expliquer en quelques mots la raison pour laquelle ils sont particulièrement confrontés à ces violences, cela s'explique par le fait que ce sont eux qui sont habituellement amenés à se battre, ce qui les expose bien sûr à un plus haut risque de blessures et de décès directement liés au combat, mais aussi parce que vu que ce sont eux qui sont censés se battre, ce sont eux également qui sont perçus comme des menaces potentielles ou comme des espions par les 2 parties au conflit. Et on note que les femmes sont beaucoup moins affectées par ce type de suspicion. Ils sont également confrontés à des attaques armées ciblées, discrimination, harcèlement, violence, même lorsqu'ils ne font pas clairement partie du conflit. Et dans ce contexte, ce qui est important de noter, c'est qu'adopter une position neutre est tout à fait impossible, puisque garder le silence peut être perçu comme un signe de complicité, tandis que révéler des informations peut amener à des actes de vengeance. Donc, dans ce contexte, les hommes ont souvent réduit au minimum leur vie économique et sociale, ce qui, bien sûr, a un effet sur leur capacité à jouer le rôle de pourvoyeur de ressources qui est socialement attendu d'eux dans le cas du Cameroun. Et donc, on note un sentiment de perte d'identité face à ce rôle qu'ils ne peuvent plus jouer et une forte anxiété aussi par rapport à l'avenir. Et donc, les dépressions nerveuses, les addictions aux drogues, à l'alcool, les tentatives de suicide ont été notées comme étant en forte augmentation. Quand les hommes sont affectés, les femmes le sont aussi, puisqu'on comprend bien qu'il y a une interaction entre les différents membres de la société. Et donc, on note en particulier une augmentation des violences conjugales et des violences faites aux femmes comme moyen pour ces hommes de réaffirmer leur position et leur pouvoir patriarcal au sein de la famille. Mais pour les femmes aussi, ça veut dire beaucoup plus de femmes qui se retrouvent seules, chefs de ménage, Et même lorsqu'elles ne sont pas seules, du fait du peu de mobilité et des risques spécifiques auxquels leur mari ou leur fils sont confrontés, cela signifie beaucoup plus d'exposition aux violences et surtout une charge de travail beaucoup plus importante. Et j'en arrêterai là.
Thank you so much, Delphine, for this presentation, which clearly indicate that, of course, the studies conducted in regard to this crisis has shown that women and girls are really able to hide the fact that men and boys are also, especially boys, are also real victims in this situation. And you indicated that, for example, 8 to 9 of youth are arrested in this context because of many reasons. Because normally, taking into account their ages, they are supposed to be on the battlefield, so they are perceived as spies if they don't join the fight. And they are victims of targeted attack. And for them, staying neutral is extremely difficult. And the consequence of this is that increased violence, domestic violence, as a result of the fact that their frustration is giving them the power, negative power again, to be violating or putting violence on their wife and so on. So depression and all the consequences. So what we can get from Delphine's presentation is that we should be very mindful as we conduct gender conflict analysis to know that conflict in this specific case in Cameroon affect not only women and girls, but also boys who are real victims of this situation. Thank you so much, Delphine. We are now going to move to Guy. I am very, very proud to introduce Guy, because Guy has been leading this research in Cameroon. I'm very proud to introduce him, because where we have been able to be today is thanks to his support and the support of other colleagues. So Guy, the question that I want to ask you is to know who are the men you are engaging with in peace building activities in Cameroon, because we could see in the film we watched earlier and also in the studies that there are many men who are engaged in this battle. So we want to know who are the men we are engaging with in peace building activities in Cameroon, and how can we strengthen this network of men? They are very important associates, and we need to strengthen the ties with these men. What roles can they continue to play? So this is the three parts of the question I'm taking to you, Guy. You have the floor.
Bien, merci, bonsoir à tout le monde. Je vais m'exprimer en français comme Delphine. Voilà, à la suite de Delphine, justement, on parlait de l'impact des conflits armés sur les garçons et les hommes. Affectés par les conflits. Et l'une des façons d'aborder la question est d'engager les garçons, d'où la recherche que nous avons menée, engager les garçons, mobiliser les garçons et les hommes pour la recherche de la paix. Alors, la question de savoir quels hommes est-ce que nous mobilisons dans le cadre de cette initiative. Déjà, les hommes sont des hommes qui ont une position de pouvoir de façon globale, parce que nous voulons contribuer à la transformation et nous ciblons en premier les hommes qui sont en position de pouvoir. Et tous les hommes, il faut le dire, ont un pouvoir. Et la différence se trouve dans la façon dont le pouvoir des uns et des autres est utilisé. Il y en a qui utilisent leur pouvoir pour perpétuer la violence, pour multiplier les conflits. Et il y a également des hommes qui utilisent leur pouvoir pour contribuer à la mise en œuvre d'un agenda pour la paix. Et parmi ces hommes, comme nous avons pu voir dans le film tantôt, il y a des leaders traditionnels, les chefs traditionnels avec lesquels nous avons travaillé, Et les chefs traditionnels sont connus comme des gardiens des traditions. Et de ce fait, ils ont beaucoup d'influence sur leur peuple. Et pour pouvoir déconstruire un système de domination comme celui que nous avons dans notre contexte, nous utilisons donc les chefs parce qu'ils sont perçus comme ceux qui perpétuent certains types de violations, certains types de violences, y compris les violences à l'égard des femmes. Et nous avons donc travaillé avec eux particulièrement pour changer la perception que la société a de ces hommes. Donc, les hommes chefs traditionnels sont donc des alliés que nous mettons en synergie avec les autres acteurs qui œuvrent pour la réduction des violences armées, la réduction de la masculinité violente. À côté des leaders traditionnels, nous avons d'autres catégories d'hommes, à savoir les hommes armés. Et les hommes armés sont de deux groupes différents. D'abord, les groupes armés étatiques qui ont un pouvoir régalien de l'État pour utiliser la force, qui sentent l'obligation de défendre et de protéger la population. Et dans le cadre de la recherche que nous avons menée, nous avons échangé également avec ces hommes, et dont nous avons pu comprendre qu'ils sont d'abord des hommes ordinaires avant d'être des hommes militaires. Et leur casquette d'homme ordinaire permet de se départir du champ de la violence et d'analyser aussi de façon froide l'impact des conflits armés, aussi bien sur les femmes, sur les filles, et de pouvoir à leur niveau suggérer à leur hiérarchie des façons de procéder pour pouvoir répondre aux violences de façon moins violente. Parce que ça, c'est la perspective des hommes armés. Ils ont l'obligation, disent-ils, d'utiliser la force, mais ils sont conscients qu'ils doivent pouvoir le faire de façon moins violente et dans le respect des droits humains. Et à côté, il y a d'autres groupes qui sont les groupes armés non étatiques. Nous avons également eu la chance de discuter avec certains, notamment dans la région du nord-ouest. Et pour ces hommes, la plupart d'entre eux, ou alors un bon nombre d'entre eux, pour être dans la logique de la recherche qui a été produite, un bon nombre d'entre eux ne sont pas fiers de recourir aux armes pour défendre ce qu'ils appellent leur territoire ou alors ce qu'ils appellent leurs idéologies. Beaucoup ne sont pas fiers de courir aux armes et beaucoup auraient souhaité que l'État leur permette de s'asseoir autour d'une table pour discuter. Et cet angle-là, nous le saisissons et nous le mettons sur la table des recommandations quand nous faisons ces recherches-là pour favoriser le dialogue, encourager le dialogue. Parce que ce n'est pas tout le monde, tous les hommes qui sont considérés comme les groupes armés non étatiques, comme les sécessionnistes, qui utilisent la violence juste pour détruire sans raison. Il y en a qui ont évoqué cet argument-là, ils souhaiteraient avoir la chance de discuter de façon équitable avec les autorités pour pouvoir apporter leurs idées et discuter de façon franche. Et dans le même groupe, il y a malheureusement des bandes armées qui sont constituées et qui kidnappent, qui demandent des rançons et dont on ne maîtrise pas toujours l'idéologie dans la guerre qui se déroule. Donc, certains hommes des groupes armés non étatiques veulent également que ces bandes armées soient écartées de l'appellation, de la dénomination de sécessionnistes, parce que tous, il y en a qui sont qualifiés de bandits, qui sont juste là pour piller sans raison. Maintenant, parmi les hommes également avec lesquels nous avons échangé, et nous tirons de bonnes perspectives dans la recherche de la paix, c'est des leaders administratifs au niveau local, les autorités administratives au niveau local. Ils font partie du cercle de prise de décision Et en échangeant avec les autorités administratives locales, nous avons ressenti le désir, l'ardent désir de changer un tant soit peu la façon dont le gouvernement central impulse la réponse aux crises. Il y a des leaders administratifs au niveau local qui pensent que le gouvernement central peut être un peu plus modéré dans la façon d'utiliser la force. C'est vrai qu'à la fin, ils soutiennent la politique qui est définie au niveau national. Nous notons cet embarras qui a à ne pas totalement défendre la politique définie au niveau national. Mais de façon constante, le discours au niveau local est celui d'appel constant à l'apaisement, celui d'appel au dialogue. Et cela nous rassure parce que ces autorités administratives locales associent à leur initiative, à leur action, d'autres hommes, notamment des hommes des organisations de la société civile, qui ne cessent d'apporter leur contribution à la formulation des réponses non violentes qui sont proposées à la table des possibles décisions qui peuvent être prises pour mettre fin au conflit. Donc voilà, je sors par là cette synergie qui se dessine au niveau des régions entre les différents acteurs, entre les différents hommes qui ont à cœur de réduire les violences et de réduire également les inégalités entre les hommes et les femmes et de permettre en sorte que l'agenda Femmes, Paix et Sécurité que nous avons dans le cadre du travail de WILPF Cameroun présenté comme un moyen de résolution des crises, que cet agenda-là puisse avoir une chance d'être mis en œuvre sans violence. Donc, voilà ce que je peux dire pour le moment en termes de cet engagement des hommes pour la paix féministe. Merci.
Thank you so much, Guy, for this. You have said it very well. Since the creation of WILPF Cameroon, the Women, Peace and Security agenda has been at the center of our focus. And that's why we have been looking into strategies and different mechanisms to implement the different pillars of this agenda. You have mentioned clearly the men in this work, and what I can hear is that there are men in different positions, and there are men who do have power, but the problem is how is this power being used by these men? You mentioned leaders, you mentioned armed men, including state armed groups and then the non-state armed groups. You mentioned local administrative authorities, but what I really love is civil society, is the conclusion you made, because in different categories, there is a strong need to shift. For example, you mentioned the state armed group and also the local administrative authorities who are really trying to move from the repression style to the dialogue one. And so this is the synergy which is being created that we want to encourage within these different men is what we are really looking forward to. So thank you so much, Guy. We are going to quickly move to the second round of questions. And then that we are going to give the floor to the audience to ask questions. So my next question goes to Delphine. And the first series of questions was mainly to set up the context, to talk about the context of this situation in Cameroon. But now you are going to talk about specific issue regarding the conflict in Cameroon and the land rights. So I want to refer to Delphine to ask her this question. Your research report makes the case that the humanitarian sector in Cameroon has overlooked and or neglected the vulnerabilities and needs of men affected by conflict, including the impact this has on women and girls. Can you say more about this and what needs to be done differently?
Merci beaucoup, Sylvie. Oui, effectivement, on note un ensemble de croyances et de pratiques parmi la communauté humanitaire qui ne permet pas de répondre aux besoins des adolescents et des hommes qui sont pourtant particulièrement vulnérables dans cette situation de crise. Et donc, simplement pour décrire brièvement quelques-unes de ces croyances, la première croyance serait ce qu'on peut appeler l'effet Titanic, avec la perception commune que les femmes, les enfants ou d'autres groupes seront systématiquement plus affectés que la population masculine dans ce cas-là. Et donc, même si cette reconnaissance des discriminations et des vulnérabilités que ces discriminations créent pour la population féminine est une avancée, ça ne permet pas d'avoir une analyse comparative de la situation des hommes par rapport aux femmes ou des filles par rapport aux garçons. Et cela évite aussi de reconnaître les vulnérabilités auxquelles sont confrontés les hommes et la marginalisation auxquelles ils font face. Dans un contexte de sous-financement comme au Cameroun aussi, il y a cette croyance qu'on aura plus de mal à obtenir des financements si on inclut les hommes. Il y a aussi la vision que les hommes, même s'ils sont affectés, restent des hommes, sous-entendu, sont suffisamment forts pour se débrouiller même sans assistance de la communauté internationale, alors qu'on voit dans bien des cas que ce n'est pas véritablement le cas et qu'ils sont souvent laissés vulnérables par la situation. Il y a aussi la vision qu'assister la population masculine va mettre les organisations à risque. On l'a vu dans certains cas, vu que les hommes sont soupçonnés d'être partis au conflit, certaines organisations vont avoir la crainte de se mettre en difficulté avec les autorités si elles devaient inclure ou cibler la population masculine. Et donc, ces perceptions guident les pratiques. Et juste à titre d'exemple, si on regarde les propositions de projets qui ont été soumises pour le Nord-Ouest et le Sud-Ouest, on voit que c'est à peu près 2/3 des propositions de projets qui incluent des activités ciblant la population féminine, mais que ce pourcentage est seulement de 12% avec des activités qui cibleraient la population masculine. Donc, qu'est-ce qu'on doit faire différemment? Si la lutte contre les violences faites aux filles et aux femmes doit bien sûr demeurer une priorité, il est également essentiel, à mon sens, de porter plus d'attention à l'impact des crises sur la population masculine et la manière dont la vulnérabilité que crée la situation pour les hommes va impacter la population en général, puisque lorsque les hommes sont affectés, les femmes sont les victimes directes ou indirectes. Par exemple, lorsque les hommes sont tués, arrêtés ou contraints à partir, ce sont les femmes qui font face à des charges et des responsabilités plus lourdes, avec davantage d'activités de première ligne qui non seulement les exposent à des risques, mais aussi créent un surcroît de travail tout à fait significatif. Et donc, on voit que prendre en compte les besoins des garçons et des hommes dans ces situations-là va apporter des résultats positifs pour l'ensemble de la société. Et pour ce faire, il s'agit d'avoir une réponse qui est basée sur des faits et non pas sur des présupposés sur comment les différentes catégories de population seraient affectées. C'est de voir comment est-ce que les différentes catégories de la population, y compris la population masculine, peut accéder aux services, en particulier les services qui sont traditionnellement ciblés en direction des filles et des femmes. Je pense aux services de santé reproductive ou de lutte contre les violences basées sur le genre, et aussi faire davantage, bien sûr, pour prévenir les risques spécifiques de protection auxquels la population masculine fait face. Je conclus simplement en attirant l'attention des participants au fait que ce qui doit changer aussi, c'est qu'il faut défier l'idée que la majorité des garçons et des hommes seraient partis au conflit et bien reconnaître le fait qu'au contraire, pour beaucoup d'entre eux, ils ont fait le choix de la non-violence en refusant de se battre, soit en se cachant, soit en se déplaçant. Mais dans tous les cas, la plupart de ces hommes ont fait le choix de la non-violence.
Thank you so much, Delphine. I will just quote where you ended. We should challenge the fact that majority of men, or most men and most boys, are part of the conflict, because your study was able to highlight the fact that some men and some boys are shying away, are trying to run away from the conflict, are trying to look for solutions to come out of the conflict. So you cannot put all the men and boys in the same box. Well, that's what I got from your presentation, which is very critical, because we are talking about humanitarian response. We are talking about projects. And if we have that in mind, we are going to really look at the situation in a very efficient way. Thank you so much, Delphine. Professor, now over to you. Professor, I would like to know, I know that your research has identified a number of group of men who you argue are already working for gender equality in different ways. Can you tell us more about these men, Professor, and what they are doing for women's rights and peace? Professor, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Delphine. Let me begin from something that has to do with the legal land system in Cameroon, so that we'll understand how men are working with women to improve the situation. The first thing I want to highlight to our participant is that the land law in Cameroon is gender neutral. Okay, it does not discriminate against men and women, but this land law is operating in a context where there is custom, and custom is very gender sensitive, okay, where we have patriarchy. So when a neutral law or a neutral legal system is operating in a context where there is patriarchy and custom, it makes the law to become gender biased. That's the first thing that we have to take into consideration. The second thing I want you to have in mind is that land in Cameroon is owned traditionally, is generally owned traditionally, and only register statutorily. So you first have to own the land, and the only way you own the land is traditionally, and then you go to the administration to register the land. So if you have problem in ownership, you cannot register what you don't own. So you begin to understand where the importance of men who are custodian, as Guy said, of tradition comes in, okay? And then the last thing I want us to highlight is that the fundamental structure responsible for land registration, land education, is called the Land Consultative Board. And literally, this board is occupied by men. It's mostly led by the sub-divisional officer. The board members are mostly men. So it becomes difficult for women to actually own land. So that said, how are some men helping women to advance the cause of women land rights? The first group of women that I identified in my research were the chiefs. Thank you, Delphine, you highlighted some of the chiefs. And, let me take the examples of the chiefs in the Northwest and Southwest. What the chiefs are doing is that they are advocating for change in mentality about what people think about tradition, what people think about custom. Some of the chiefs now are arguing that tradition and custom are not static, they are dynamic, and they need to adapt to society, okay? For example, there are many chiefs that are advocating for women to inherit land, contrary to tradition. We saw that in the Northwest, okay? And there are other chiefs that are leading by example, making sure that their children are able to inherit land, okay? In the Southwest, especially around Munya, in the Southwest, is very peculiar because there is land redistribution coming from the land that was formerly owned by the colonial plantation, the CDC, which was formerly the Commonwealth Development Corporation. The CDC is giving back land to the community and giving it to the chiefs. The chiefs in some part of the Southwest are giving the land to women and men. So they give the land to people, not to family heads. So women own lands that are given as gift, land that comes from land redistribution in this area. Another group of men that we found in our research are those elites and also dynamic men who are now going in for joint land titles. When you go in for joint land titles, it means that both the man and the woman has control, ownership of that land. And the percentage of joint land titles, according to research, is growing from less than 1% to about 4%. 4% looks ridiculously low, but it is very, very important, which means if the husband is not there, what happens is that the woman automatically owns that land because they have that land together. They have a joint land title to the land. The other group of people that we found were mayors, particularly in the Northwest. We saw mayors who are advocating for women to be very careful when entering into marriages. Marriages are very important in who owns property. And there is a famous law in Cameroon where some mayors ignore. When they are about to marry a couple, they ask them that, are you going for what type of regime, common regime or joint property, or you want to be married through native law and custom? Often than not, many young women or women that are not very educated do not know the differences between these different regimes. And many mayors now are male mayors are advising women not to go in for a regime that is based on native law and custom. Because when you go for a regime that is based on native law and custom, if your spouse is not there, the regime that would rule over property will be the native law and custom. And native law and custom recognize that men and women do not inherit property. So mayors are doing a very good job trying to educate women not to go into those type of regime. Another thing that we found was the role of nuclear family. Families are getting smaller. People are becoming more concerned with their small family, husband, wife, and children. And what the people are doing in this context is that many people are buying land and registering it in the name of their children, be it male or female children. That is giving women a major, or young girls, young women, major right to land, because if the husband or their father is not there, these people automatically own this land. The last one I will emphasize on, which is very, very important, is the role of male judicial activism, okay? The judicial, those of us who are in the US, for example, understand the role of the courts. The courts makes laws, and the court's decisions are very, very instrumental. So what we find now is that there are men in the courts that are trying to make rules or that are educating land conflict in favor of women. I'm going to give you a few examples. One is when there is a man dies with an unfavorable will to women, okay, to the wife or to the spouse. We had that example in a famous case that is between Madame Ikimbi and Ndongmo. In this particular case, what happened was that the guy, the man, upon dying, did not will any property to his first wife, but preferred to will his property to the second wife, even though he had children with the first wife, and so the children had no land. But what the court did was that the court considered that will not to be a valid will and decided to share the property and give some of the property to the first wife, who otherwise would not have had land. And another second case is where a guy, this one was in Limbe, decided to will his property to his friend rather than to his wife. The court also came in and was a male judge and adjudicated in favor of the wife, which means women now could have. We have the celebrated case in Cameroon, which is the case of Florence and Chinumbo, where this was a lady who was already married, has left their family compound and was married to another family. At the death of his father, he had letters of administration to own the father's estate. But the brothers took this lady to court that he was no longer part of the family because she was married. But what the High Court saw with them that according to saw with the brothers that according to native laws, the woman is not supposed to inherit. Okay, but when this case was taken on appeal to the Supreme Court, I'm just going to end
Professor,
it.
please, I'm very sorry. Can you write, yes, have just a few more minutes, and you need to give the floor to participants to, yes, so yes, but there are some questions asking to get back to you after the call. So thank you so much, Professor. Very, very sorry to cut you. Guy, you and I have 2 minutes only. 2 minutes, Guy, 2 minutes, so that we give the floor to the participant. Guy, can you just tell us very quickly how your work in Cameroon, and especially how you want to plan on the work you have done in Cameroon? Just very quickly, 1.5 minutes, then I will have 1.5 minutes, and then we open the floor to the participant. Thank you, Guy.
Voilà, merci pour être bref. Comment est-ce que nous comptons utiliser déjà les résultats acquis pour continuer cette action? Déjà, comme nous avons vu dans le film, il y a ce leader traditionnel que nous avons rencontré dans le cadre de notre travail sur le terrain, qui accueille les personnes déplacées internes et qui, dans son travail, facilite leur accès dans la communauté en leur donnant, y compris les terres et des espaces pour le commerce. Et comme le professeur l'a relevé, ce rôle de leader traditionnel qui est perçu comme celui qui s'ouvre désormais pour faciliter l'intégration des femmes et faciliter leur accès à la terre, n'était pas, cette image des chefs, elle est nouvelle, et nous allons nous appesantir sur cette nouvelle configuration, perception que nous avons des leaders traditionnels pour accéder ou alors mobiliser d'autres leaders traditionnels dans d'autres localités. Parce que l'exemple que nous avons eu dans cette localité de Melon avec ce leader traditionnel, c'est que le plaidoyer qui mène au niveau local permet aux femmes de comprendre qu'elles ont le droit à la propriété foncière, parce que plusieurs femmes ne le savaient pas dans cette localité-là. Et ce faisant, d'autres leaders traditionnels dans les localités comme l'Ouest, où le chef est généralement redouté, permettra que les leaders traditionnels puissent également mener ce travail d'ouverture, d'éducation des femmes sur leurs droits d'accès, sur leur accès à la propriété foncière. Parce que comme on l'a appris tantôt, la loi n'est pas discriminatoire à l'égard des femmes, mais c'est plutôt les pratiques, les usages qui ont, avec le temps, ramené les femmes au second rôle, parce que plusieurs ne savent pas qu'elles ont ce droit-là. Maintenant, notre travail dans les prochaines années, sur la base des leçons apprises de ce projet jusqu'ici, sera de mobiliser d'autres leaders traditionnels pour mener ce plaidoyer-là au niveau local et partant au niveau national, et utiliser les cadres qui existent également au niveau régional pour faciliter l'accès des femmes à la propriété foncière.
Thank you so much, Guy. I think, Rim, if you permit the participant, you can give the floor to the participants. Then in the concluding remark, I will be able to respond to the question which is addressed to me. So Rim, can you help me with the question?
Yes, absolutely.
I can't. Yeah.
Okay, if you say so, we can take some in the chat box, and if some have pressing questions,
Yes.
they can also open their mic. Please keep your question very constrained and under 1 minute, so we can have time to give the floor to the panelists. So any questions? I'm going to be looking at the chat box, and also if you want to put your hand up, it's fine.
I can see there's a hand from Astu.
Yes, Esther. Please keep it brief. Go ahead, please.
Very brief, yeah.
Yes.
Astu, tu as la parole. Vas-y, s'il te plaît.
Astu, you're unmuted. So you start.
We can't hear Astu.
Vous m'entendez?
Oui, oui, c'est bon. I think she has connection issues.
Vous m'entendez?
Oui, Astou, vas-y rapidement, s'il te plaît.
Oui, c'est juste
Astou, s'il te plaît, peux-tu écrire ta question dans le chat? Oui, ta connexion n'est pas bonne et tu es en train d'être coupé, s'il te plaît. Donc, tu peux mettre ta question dans le chat, je t'en prie. Yes, I'm asking Astou to write her question in the chat since she has some, she's breaking. So you can have, let's have 2 more questions. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a few more minutes. If you have questions, you can, we can hear you, or you can write it in the chat box. Any questions?
Are there questions in the chat, Rim?
No, not yet.
Okay, that gives us the chance to, yes. I want to say that, Rim, you also asked me to respond to a question, yes, as international president. So what I went to our manifesto, to the WILPF manifesto, that I was able to read this. We reaffirm our determination to end now and forever the patriarchal relationships of power, control, and abuse that have distorted the lives of women, children, and men for millennia and contribute to violent societies. This is what our founding mothers wrote in the manifesto. This is what we have in our manifesto. So it's about trying to change, to challenge the patriarchal relation of power. So the Mobilizing Men for Feminist Peace initiative is an initiative, it is a project that is a lesson learned. When looking at this provision in the manifesto, this project is a lesson learned because having this on the agenda of WILPF gives the opportunity to multiply strategies to dismantle these power structures. Professor said it, Guy said it, Delphine said it, and so on, because one of the ways of doing it is working, for example, we've tried that have in the communities, they are as traditional leaders, as custodians of the tradition, they can really be very of great support to challenge this, to dismantle the power structures that oppress women, children, and even some men. Contrary to some conception, the project has enabled us to understand to the extent to which some men and boys are vulnerable. Delphine was very clear that, of course, we know it. We have, over the years, women have been the first victim of the conflict, but the project has also made us to understand that we should really do proper analysis, because at some point, men are also victims and they can be in connection with women to push for the agenda. So this project has enabled us to measure the achievement of the goals set out in our 2022-2025 international program, especially the militarized masculinity, the transformation of militarized masculinity. You remember very clearly that this is one of the provisions in the international program, challenging, trying to transform the militarized masculinity into the positive masculinity. So from this project, we have been able to see how destructive gender norms are exposed in order to make men and women equal partners. Men and boys are now allies for peace and should be considered globally in WILPF work. So I want to end for my question to say that as you are doing the analysis, as you are working towards feminist peace, we need to identify who are these categories of people who can support our work towards feminist peace. And the research has made us understand that we should have men and boys on board if you want to reach sustainable peace, because they are able to use their power to challenge these systems of oppression. So WILPF is really on good foot to make sure that within our different sections, it's just about trying to identify how best, because not all the men, not all the boys are joining the fight, not all the men are for violence, for military responses. Some really want to see things happen. So we need to build on these boys and on this group of men who are really working towards feminist peace and build greater synergy. So that is it for my question. So maybe if there are no questions, we have 6 more minutes. We can just give
to Delphine. Delphine, there's a question for you in the chat box.
Yeah, maybe if Delphine responds to the question,
yes.
After Delphine, she just responds to the question and give a closing remark. And then you have 1 minute for closing remark, and then Professor, and then you are done. Thank you.
Okay. Delphine, you can go ahead and respond to your question.
Oui, je ne saurais pas vraiment dire comment distinguer ceux qui sont enrôlés de force et ceux qui sont enrôlés volontairement. Je dirais plutôt que les motivations pour rejoindre les groupes armés ont évolué au fil du temps, et ceci a été très bien observé et documenté, notamment du fait qu'il n'y ait pas de réelle alternative économique et de protection suffisante qui soit orientée vers cette population masculine et vers ces adolescents. Donc les motivations deviennent de moins en moins idéologiques, pour ainsi dire, et de plus en plus une motivation économique, une motivation d'être protégé et une motivation aussi d'avoir un statut dans la société donnée. Par rapport au désarmement, démobilisation, réintégration, c'est effectivement un aspect important et apparemment beaucoup plus devrait être fait par rapport à cela. Mais au-delà de ce type de programme bien spécifique, je pense aussi qu'il faut que les acteurs humanitaires, les acteurs de paix et les acteurs de développement travaillent davantage de concert dans le cadre du Nexus pour apporter une réponse plus holistique, plus cohérente et plus pérenne aux difficultés que rencontre cette population masculine, avec notamment un fort besoin de les réintégrer économiquement et de leur trouver des alternatives pour la reconstruction d'une société qui soit en cohésion et qui puisse vivre en paix.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much, Delphine. Guy, you have 1 minute, please. Closing remarks.
OK. Pour terminer, je voulais remarquer le commentaire de Teresa dans le chat qui salue le travail que nous faisons, et je voulais préciser qu'il s'aligne ce travail dans les synergies que nous construisons. Et ISOCO Panel for Gender Equality est l'une des connexions que nous avons pu faire jusqu'ici et qui va non seulement nous permettre d'engager plus d'adolescents, d'hommes dans la construction de la paix au Cameroun, mais également dans la sous-région au niveau de l'Afrique. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Professor, please take the floor.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for participating, and those who are asking for my work, we'll be happy to share my work with them, both on the conflict and on the land right. Generally, what we've learned is that there need to be early warning systems that need to be put in place to dictate conflict before conflict become emergency. It shouldn't always be reactionary, but it should be preventive. And I think women have a major role, just like men, in playing to prevent conflict before they become conflict. And the synergy between traditional institutions and former institutions, that is the parliamentarians, the mayors, the governments, officials, is very, very important. And I've done quite a good work and have a network with these people, even though they keep changing. So it will be a very good platform for us to develop and exploit further areas for avoiding conflicts. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Professor. Yes, I'll hand the floor to you, Rim.
Yes.
Yes, so that you conclude. But before handing, I have gotten to know that, yes, building synergies, leaving no one behind. That's what I got. Leave behind possibilities to need to be explored. So in this specific case, we should try and deconstruct some of the preconceived ideas and make sure that we identify our allies in the communities, these different groups of men who are supportive of the peace agenda, and work with them. So building synergies is something that we must have in mind at different levels. I hand over the floor to you, Rim.
Yes, I'm going to read just one more question and comment. I think we don't have time to get to them, but I just want to, I just wanted to read them. So Chiara Denti was asking, good afternoon, and thanks for all your interventions. This is her comment. I know some African feminist legal scholars and lawyers are against statutory ownership as perceived as westernized, and welcome custom communal recognition through changing the customs, but still relying on community rules. What do you think about it? Is it controversial for you? So maybe this is some food for thought. There's also, Pauline has a comment, which is, she said, hello panelists. Thanks for those great insights. I would like to know if it is possible to tackle the root causes by educating young boys about positive masculinity in conflict zones, because original boys wear police uniforms and play with guns to feel like heroes and pursue fulfillment and honor through serving in armies. And countries with the strongest, most brutal weaponries are hailed as leaders of the world. So, thank you for that. I really would like to thank
maybe sharing our resources, especially the link to professors' research, to our research with Cameroon research, and to Delphine research. They are going to have answers to all these questions because it's exactly what you have in this research. In the case of Cameroon, sensitization, education of boys have been instrumental in bringing this on the table. So I'm going to share with you this for you to the answers to your questions.
Absolutely. So all the attendees are going to get, because you've signed up using your email, so you're going to get, I'll share the research and all the other resources that we have, and a link to the documentary film and the webinar recording, so you can watch it again if you want.
Yeah, but before we end, we are really available to respond to any further question. So in case you think that there are questions that we just send them to Rim, and then the question can be directed to one of us. The webinar will be able to respond. So I think we can do that.
Thanks again, everyone. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you in our upcoming webinars. Thank you so much to our...
Thank you so much, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to all the panelists. Thank you to the participants. Thank you to you, Rim. Thank you to each and everyone. Bye-bye. Hi, Vin.
We thank you, and good to see you again.